So one of the questions I get a whole lot is, hey, what position should I sleep in? So in this video, we're going to break down different positions, why certain positions maybe are better than others, and a couple of things that can happen. And patients also wonder, hey, why does my pain get worse at night? And why do I wake up in the morning and generally that pain is a little bit more significant? So we're going to go through that as well. So a couple of things, there's no one size fits all. So there's no, unfortunately, kind of perfect position for you to sleep in. It's going to vary from person to person for sure, number one. Number two, a lot of patients kind of go to, one of their go-tos is they'll go, you know what, I think I need to go buy a new mattress or a new bed. And sometimes that can be the case. I would say probably more times than not, that's not the case. It has really nothing to do with the bed. It's just that there's an underlying issue and the disc in their lower back is compressing on the nerve roots, and that is what's causing the sciatica and or the lower back pain. And it's really, until that essentially gets addressed, it doesn't necessarily matter too much what position they're going to sleep in. Obviously, some may be a little bit better than others, but the point I'm making is until that underlying issue is resolved, it doesn't matter if you spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a brand new bed, it's going to continue to come back over and over again, okay? So a couple of things. The first is, why does the pain generally going to get worse at night? Well, there's really two main reasons for that. If it's just kind of right before you go to bed, let's say it's 10 o'clock and you're going to bed and you're like, oh my gosh, the pain is really more significant than maybe at 12 o'clock during the day. Well, you've had a full day of compressive issues, right? So if we have an underlying disc that's compressed and pushed upon that nerve root, well, you've had that full day of that disc being continually compressed. And by the time you kind of lay down at night, it's at its maximal compression. And so that can be one reason why that pain is a little bit more than, say, midday. Number two, let's say you wake up at, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning and you're in a lot of pain and you have to get up and move around. Well, the body needs movement, discs need movement, and all day long, even if you're not moving a whole lot, the discs are going through this cycle where they compress and they open a little bit. This is called spinal imbibition. It's the way that discs get water, oxygen, nutrients, because they're avascular, they don't have a direct blood supply. You've had bruises before, you might hit your leg and it turns black or blue. It's because there's a rich and a significant amount of blood that still goes to those muscles. Not a whole lot with the discs, if any. So the reality is it needs motion, and when we're sleeping, we're not really moving nearly as much as when we're awake during the daytime. So that's the second reason why that pain starts to increase potentially, is because the disc is really pushed upon that nerve root. There's no motion, so the longer it pushes, it kind of just tends to irritate it more and more and more. No different if I was kind of standing on your foot. Well, the longer I stand on that foot, generally probably not going to start feeling better. It's going to have a tendency to feel worse. But if I take some weight off, move around, it might start to alleviate that. Number three, patients ask a lot of times, hey, in the morning when I wake up, man, it's pretty bad. Well, what happens is in the morning when we wake up, we were obviously being more horizontal, we're not vertical. And so what happens is the discs, although we want them with more water, or we want them to kind of fill back up with water, oxygen, nutrients, when they're in that compressed state and then they start filling back up, even though they're filling back up with that water, oxygen, which is what we want, it's going to sometimes agitate and irritate, because now what the disc has done is it's the part that's pushing on the nerve, it's a little bit more pushing on the nerve in the morning time, and that's why in the morning you start feeling a little bit more pain. So hopefully that all makes sense. Let's now go over different positions that you can sleep in, and the first is laying on your back. Now when you lay on your back, if your legs are completely flat, it puts a lot of tensile pressure in that back. And so most of you watching this may relate to this, that if you do that, you'll have increased pain. And if you, for example, put your feet flat on the ground and you bend your knees, it's going to feel a little bit better. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if you're sleeping and you're laying on your back, right, those legs are flat, pressure increases. If we bend and put our feet right flat on that surface, generally feels better, but you're not probably going to sleep this way. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable position. I mean, it's comfortable, but it's hard to relax. And so what would be more relaxing is if we put a pillow underneath our knees, and that serves both purposes. The legs are straight, there's less pressure, and generally that should help to alleviate that and feel a little bit better, okay? You can also try to bring one leg up, kind of like a frog leg. You know, that's fine as well. But again, generally sleeping on your back, try to have, if you can, that pillow. Excuse me. Now, that being said, this is a little bit of a thinner pillow. My pillow at home is definitely thicker than this. This is just for demonstration purposes. You wouldn't want to have a pillow that's too thick, though, because that will flatten out that back too much. Like, you wouldn't want to have a big block per se, and have your legs kind of like a 90 degree angle. That might be a little bit too much for the back. But maybe a thicker pillow, and you can experiment. Again, everyone's going to be a little bit different. That angle, sometimes a difference of maybe a couple of inches can be all the difference of whether it feels better or worse. So you got to kind of play around with that a little bit. Maybe try to, excuse me, get a thicker pillow, get a thinner pillow, maybe double up a couple pillows and see what that feels like. And you'll kind of find what feels a little bit better for you. We also want to make sure when we're sleeping on our side, if we can, not to try to curl up in that fetal position. That's going to put a lot of extra stress and strain, because when you round that back, the pressure increases fairly substantially. Now, there's a caveat to that, which we'll go through in just a few moments. But in general, okay, we want to have a fairly position where our neck is in a good alignment over our ears, over our shoulder, and not way far forward. And then using the pillow between the knees helps to decrease the rotation. When you rotate on your side, and if you start to rotate a little bit more, that can be enough to just irritate and put that extra compressive force onto that nerve root, which for maybe 15 or 20 minutes is not a big deal, but for 4 or 5 hours through the night, that can be a substantial increase in discomfort. So you're going to lay on your side, doesn't matter left or right side. Now, well, it can matter, meaning that if you feel better or worse on one of those sides, then obviously listen to your body. But if they're equal, it doesn't make a difference. Pillow between the knees, you're on your side, you're just going to put that pillow right there, okay? And then that's going to take some pressure off of that lower back, and generally that should make it feel more comfortable. Again, you really got to listen to what your body is telling you, okay? The third position is laying on your stomach, which, well, sorry, let's go back to what I was going to talk about in that position, when you're in that fetal position. There are some cases where if it's their neck, for example, and it's shooting down their arm, if they put their head a little bit forward, that alleviates that. When their head is back upright, that can really exacerbate and really irritate that. So that's generally one of the caveats, is if you feel significant relief, for now, yeah, put your head in that forward position. And or if it does the same thing with your lower back, if you round your lower back a little bit on your side and that alleviates a lot of that pain, then that's okay. That's part of listening to your body. Generally, and that's going to be temporary. It's not like you're going to sleep like that forever, because obviously if the disc is compressed, hopefully you're going to see somebody that's going to help you and fix that for you. Laying on your stomach in general, don't recommend that. It's going to put an extra curvature in that spine, and sometimes that will feel better, again, temporarily for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But if you're laying for hours at a time, that's going to put a lot of extra stress and strain and generally not feel great. You also obviously have to have your head turned one side or the other, which can start causing some neck issues. Now, the caveat with that, if that brings you substantial relief and you're feeling a lot better, you got to kind of look at that individually and see what that feels like. Sometimes patients will put a pillow, right, like kind of over their front, over their pelvis. And when they stack a pillow or two, what it does is it puts them in a little bit of a forward position on their bed. And that can actually alleviate some of the pain, especially if we're dealing with something called spinal stenosis, which is narrowing of the spinal canal. And when you go forward, that alleviates some of that. Then you're going to have to kind of play with that a little bit too. Unfortunately, there's so many variables, so we can't just say, hey, this is the exact best position to sleep in. It's just impossible to have that happen. So hopefully this is helpful. Another thing to think about is when you get into and out of bed is try not to go into a sit-up position. So generally, if they were going to lay down, like say I was going to lay down, I want to sit first, right, and kind of roll myself to the side. And then if I was going to get on my back from this position, right, I would get on my back, get that pillow underneath my knees and go from there. When you go to get up, it doesn't matter left or right side, whatever is easier. You really want to make sure you're on your side, right? Take your top hand, in this case it's my left, I'm going to take that left elbow and I'm going to take my bottom arm, okay, And I'm going to take that hand and pushing with my left elbow and the right hand, I'm going to swing my legs off the table and really use my upper body to try to get me into that seated position rather than doing a sit-up, either getting into bed or out of bed. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any specific questions, if you have any specific topics you would like me to discover, please go ahead and you can drop a line and I will do my best to get to them.